Welcome to the podcast that questions everything, from conspiracies to philosophy, from science to religion. We will be looking at the construct of the illusion, and as always, we will question everything. Hello and welcome to another broadcast of Everything's an Illusion podcast where we question everything. This evening I am joined by Sifu Ali Blakey, who is the founder and director of Breakthrough Combat Arts. He's a third degree black belt sash in Lugar Kung Fu. He's a level 3 instructor of Chen, Tai Chi and Qigong, indoor student of Shen, Wulin, Xuan, Taoism. And I apologise for my pronunciations, and he's a black belt kickboxer. Welcome, Ali. How are you?
I'm all right, my man. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on your podcast. It's a great honour, may I say. And I'm sorry that you're feeling so choked up and not sounding so.
No,
so
I'm good to go. That's no excuse. And I just apologise to the regular listeners there. I've got a bit of a chest infection. I sound like I'm squeezing a dead wheezing cat, so I apologise for that. But so we'll just get straight into it, Ali. If you just obviously my pronunciations were a little bit off there.
Well, it's one of those things, and I suppose it's not important. It's not an important part of the thing. It's just if you can speak the lingo, it's always good if you can speak the lingo, but it's not important at all.
So can you just, in your own words, just give yourself a wee introduction? Just tell us about the Breakthrough Combat Arts. And
sure.
Then obviously we said Lugar, Tai Chi and Qigong. So if we start with just a wee introduction of what Breakthrough is, and then we'll talk a wee bit about the Tai Chi, the Qigong and the Lugar.
Well, no worries. Well, Breakthrough's entirely my own creation, as it were. I spent a lot of time learning the external side of martial arts and training. It's actually pronounced Lugar. So I did a lot of that. I've done a lot of fighting around over the years. I've been at it for quite some time. I'm one of those guys that's sort of plugs away at it behind the scenes, sort of like a sort of jobbing martial arts instructor, as it were. And I decided that I felt I was being sort of guided by the associations that I was involved in, and they were taking me down a road of a road of their choosing. So I decided to move away from it, start to explore the things which I'm more interested in. And so about 3 years ago, I think it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I decided to make the leap and start to make Breakthrough actually happen. It had always been on my mind throughout my training as I'd progressed up through the grades and all that. I'd always thought, I'd like to do it differently. I'd like to sort of be a little bit more independent of this. So it was the best thing I've done, as far as I'm concerned. To move away from a sort of thought process which belonged to someone else and start to do my own thing,
So explore your own.
And I chose, it's all, in this day and age and all that, you've got to sort of market yourself properly and all that, but I did put some thought into it, and Breakthrough was always the thing which I've wanted people to achieve for themselves. I wanted them to go beyond the sort of teachings which are shown to them. So not just take that like at face value, like, oh, this does this, that does that. I've always wanted people to sort of ask the questions themselves, maybe try and explore some things for their own, their own methods, and in that sort of respect of their own breakthrough, as it were. So that's why I chose to do that, and here we are.
That's quality.
Yeah,
because it's like almost like very similar to the idea of the podcast. You want people to have a breakthrough. It is like I want people to question the things that are in front of their face, be it martial arts, be it the You know, I know people who have been to martial arts 10 years in a class, and they just do what they're told. They've never like strung two things together until somebody
It's what
strings it together for them.
exactly. It's one of those things that sort of I think it's what separates the quality of some people. You know, it's why some people make good instructors. You know, I'm not like talking about myself. I'm talking about people in general. You get good instructors and you get bad instructors, and it's normally the guys that have, you know, had a little bit savvy, had a little bit of a thought for themselves. They make the more interesting instructors because they teach more uh, true or more, uh, you know, more meaningful lessons, and they sort of espouse their own values as opposed to, you know, someone who like what their instructor taught them. You
Like
know,
a
so,
like a robotic manual
yeah, I
or
mean, which is it's totally fine. I mean, there's a place for teachings to be handed down in that way, but it just makes for a far more interesting, um, you know, exploration of the style. If
I,
people are doing things slightly differently, you know.
I'm with you there. I'm with you there. Like I teach a wee martial arts class as well, a wee grappling class, and I always have to put things in people's perspective from my perspective because I'm a fat guy. So I'm always saying to people, you know, like I don't do this particular technique because it doesn't work for my body type.
Yep.
So you've got to look at what works for your body type. If you're, 6 foot and skinny, then this technique isn't going to work. This is for like a dense fat guy technique, you know.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what obviously sort of goes right. I mean, everybody will be familiar with Bruce Lee's teaching of, you know, throw away what is useless and keep what is useful. You know, it's obviously it's important to bear those things in mind, though, um, that your body type is suited to a certain sort of application or whatever. But it's also important to explore it and give it to people, uh, you know, in the way that you were a 6 foot skinny guy, for example. You know, you also have to be able to teach them that it can be done that way. You know, you might not be able to demonstrate it because you don't actually have that sort of physical makeup, but you need to express to them that, yeah, I do it like that, but you should probably do it like this, you know, because it would make more sense for you. So,
So with the breakthrough combat arts, what is your I see you got Facebook, so it's facebook.com/breakthrough combat. And where are you based? Like, obviously,
well,
I know you're based in Edinburgh, that kind of area, but where are you
yeah,
based? What sort of.
I'm I'm in and around the Edinburgh area. I've got one regular class, which is just it's a Tai Chi class at the moment, which is a Thursday morning. So I was doing that this morning. It's 10:30 at the St Bride Centre. We're working towards other ways, other avenues of getting things out. There's also a Sanda class, which is not taught by me, but taught by one of my students, and that's at Tynecastle High School, and that's on a Friday night. That's 6 till 7. But I do sort of seminars and workshops and special events and stuff. I put that on. So there's usually something going on uh, out with the regular classes, you know, and because I try and sort of get as many people involved as possible, you know. So it's like come as you are type thing. Just
That's the way, Ken.
if you've never done it before or whatever, like it's always been my sort of vision. If I want to use such a lofty concept, but my vision's always been to take the martial arts and uh, sort of turn them on their head a little bit, you know. So if you're a person who's interested in fighting, I'd like to teach you the internal side. If you're a person who's interested in the internal side, I'd like to show you some of the applications, you know. I like to sort of just allow people to just sort of
That
find their own way, you know, explore their own stuff and maybe just be challenged a little bit, you know.
and that's the sort of that's. I'm going to talk about Tai Chi in a second, but that's the sort of thing. See what you just said there about that ability and that experience and that knowledge that you have of both internal and external, because the mass majority of martial artists out there, they believe or they understand that it's external. They
Yep.
have no concept of internal martial arts. And I went to, it was Dundee University, and I seen they had a Tai Chi class, and I was like, hey, I do Qigong. I'm going to go to the Tai. I'm going to go to the Tai Chi class. And the guy who took the Tai Chi class, he wasn't interested in the internal side of Tai Chi. He was only interested in the external and the physical application. And it's a great physical martial art. But I was interested in, at that time, I was right into the kind of empty force and getting that sort of stuff. So I was like, Tai Chi guy, he's not into Chi. What is this? You know, and it totally blew my mind. I was like, who are you, you fucking fake Tai Chi motherfucker? And
Well, like I say, there's
there's a side to everything.
no offense to the guy. I'm sure he's perfectly, you know, whoever he was, if he's out there and listening, I'm sure he's a fantastic instructor in his own right. But you know, people have got to find, like it's kind of what I've said before. You know, you got to find your own methods, and all these people, even the bad people, can sort of give you a direction. What it might be a full-on, you know, U-turn after you've spent some time with them. You think, I never want to learn for that guy again. But then you've learned something useful from that guy, knowing that what he does is not what you're after. So, you know, there is a value to those.
Oh no, for sure. I left that class realizing that Tai Chi wasn't just a kind of slow meditative dance that again you could use to harness energy. I realized in the class pretty quickly that this guy was like throwing people, like kind of had amazing ability to be centered to the floor with just a move of the hips and an extension of a leg, and he was throwing me across the room, and I was like, hey, this is impressive. But
It's pretty cool stuff. Yeah, I mean, that's the sort of, that's the real fundamentals of Tai Chi. You know, like I mean, a lot of people don't even understand that Tai Chi Chuan translates as the grand ultimate fist. You know, it truly is the you know. I mean, I started doing Tai Chi, but later on, I wish that had been my first art. You know, but I spent, yeah, as a young man, you know, you do look for the external training. You know, you want to get fit, you want to punch folk in the face and all that sort of stuff. You know, you do. There's no doubt about it. That's why you go to
that's right,
these.
you want to be Bruce Lee.
Everybody wants to be. Well, in my case, it was the turtles. That was what I was all about. I mean, I'm not even kidding you. Like I've sat in a room in front of, you know, inside a master's house in China, just a few feet away from this guy, and I thought to myself, you know, I'm here because of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and it's a wonderful thing, you know. I mean, everybody's got to have a motivation of some sort. Everybody's got to have a place to start from.
Yeah, drive.
And it doesn't matter what it is, you know. It makes no difference what it is, as long as it takes you down the right route and you end up, you know, following what makes you happy.
And you
Then
end up
why worry?
End up in a master's house in China.
And then for a master's house in China, exactly. But that's if you trace yourself right back to the root of it. You know, it's a funny place where we all begin. So I guess that's kind of like, that's my point, is if you allow people and if you give people as much genuine information as you can, you know, as you can give them, then they may find themselves so a decade down the line sitting in a master's house in China, or over in Korea talking to someone, or in Japan, or, you know, in sort of any of the Malaysian ones, you know.
Or on a podcast, a guy in Edinburgh.
Or on a podcast to some guy who's like a wheezing cat. You know?
I'm talking about me being on a podcast to you. You know, I mean, you're my equivalent of the master in China.
Oh, not at all. I never put myself in a bracket. Never ever.
That's why I did it. So, for me, like Tai Chi, obviously I gave you a wee of my when I was 17. That was so, I went, and before that I had done Aikido and seen the key of the Japanese again system of defense essentially. And the founder of Aikido, a guy called Yoshiba Moriishi, they call him O Sensei. He was famous for his key work, for his energy work. He would do a lot of really fancy things, but Aikido takes a lot of slack from people because um, the way that it works with the two partners, a lot of the time the partner is very much gives themselves to be thrown, to be that sort of stuff. So I was looking for something that was just pure energy, something that I could, because I was fascinated by this whole idea of the Force and empty touch.
You
And
want to be a Jedi.
I wanted to be a Jedi, yeah. So I came across Qigong, and
Yep.
it blew my mind. And that was when I was about, 15, 16, buying books, and then, that's 20 years ago now, I've been practicing Qigong. But like most people in the West, unfortunately, I've never been taught Qigong. I've never been, so I like to just call it, energy work or
Yeah,
something
I
along
mean,
the words, because I just consume books and watch DVDs
yeah.
and breathe and do routines. And,
Ultimately, like you're basically you're on the right course. You know, it's this. It's sometimes you find yourself on the right course anyway, but ultimately, qigong even means energy work. I think people have I don't know why, because I've even read it myself in books, but people have this strange difficulty in differentiating between the two, between Tai Chi and Qigong. And although, admittedly, they're both sort of outwardly, they have similarities. Outwardly, they have some similarities in the fact that they're taught slowly or they're practiced slowly. But and I've read it in some, I can't remember what it was actually, but it was like Tai Chi, the Ultimate Guide. It was one of those books,
oh,
and and even that was, I think that was its opening line of its introduction was that some people have, or there's a great difficulty to discern between the two styles. But it's very simple. It's a very simple thing. Tai Chi, as we've all previously sort of just spoken about, you were getting flung about by the boy in Dundee. Tai Chi is in fact it's a martial system. It's a martial art. Whereas Qigong is a system with no martial application. There are what stems from Qigong is martial benefit, because obviously it builds your health. It depends on what Qigong you do. There's many out there, There's, for example, there's the Yi Jing Jing, which is muscle and tendon changing. So that has a sort of more martial effect because it strengthens the important parts, which allow you to sort of do your martial arts more effectively. But
no,
then there's other ones like the eight brocades, which is purely internal, for the organs, for the breath, for to relax the mind. It's got no martial benefit other than having that sort of mental clarity, which stems from spending some time just having a wee breathe to yourself. So I don't see why it's such a difficult concept for people to understand. They're absolutely separate. A lot of the time, classes are taught alongside, like myself, for example. Tai Chi, Qigong. You often throw them in to the class as well, but of course, you can operate Qigong as a standalone thing solely, and follow that, and see where that takes you.
oh no,
You know.
that's it's definitely been my path in martial arts. Uh, um, as you talked about the internal and the external, I've always used for the last 10 years anyway. Mixed martial arts are kind of the standard popular mode of entertainment combat.
Yep.
As my external, and Qigong as my internal,
Yep.
to get my breathing I know it doesn't sound like I do qigong because I've got like a wheezing cat thing, but
You got to work on your lungs there, man. You get
my lung capacity is phenomenal. Unfortunately, I've got some sort of viral infection or something like that, but I'm working on it. I did my qigong this morning for an extra
oh, it should
an extra 20 minutes to try and work through
uh,
it. So,
I mean, I don't know what it is. I don't know what type of qigong it is you do. I don't know where it originated from, but most of them will help benefit your immune system. Even the ones like the Yi Jin Jing, for example. Although it's a bit more martial, they still assist with building up your immune system and
well,
helping out.
the kind of bone strengthening tendon kind of style. I remember reading a book by uh, Doctor The Secrets of Hard Qigong by Doctor Jin something something something. He's got about like 40 books on qigong.
Yeah.
He's like a proper kind of qigong Chinese qigong authority. And I remember getting to about the 10th chapter, and it was all about massaging your testicles. And and I was about 18 at the time, and I'm thinking to
It's a
myself,
perfect excuse to touch a balls then,
I know,
especially at 18.
no, for sure, but it was one of these kind of strange things where you're saying like, where do I practice this? You know what I mean? Do I like go? I'm a student at university. I've got shared accommodation. Do I just go to the toilet and and do my qigong for an hour? Like.
Well, it's one of those things, like it's why it's so difficult, because it sort of has this, it has this
It's
idea
different.
about being as esoteric or unapproachable, or and basically that's the bit that I want to. That's why I'd really like people to change. If you want to go fumble with your balls for an hour, then there's proven health benefits to it. So.
Oh no, for sure, 100%.
By all means, go and do it. There's lots of stuff out there actually, sort of Taoist related love, enhancing techniques and sexual potency techniques and all that, and
Well, we can get into that because that's something that I'm quite interested in. The whole as you say, about the Taoist sexual techniques, the whole idea of basically. Not coming and bringing your cum in, no your cum, but the sexual energy, redirecting it up your spine.
Well, some of the most potent energy types, are based on extreme, extreme emotions or strong, pure emotions, such as sex, is a prime example. It's not so much that there's sort of three different ways to break down the vital things required in your body.
So we're back. We were talking about the three ways of energy. We were talking about sexual energy. And bringing that up, and you started to say there's three ways.
It's not three ways, but there's three different systems at work. Everyone's familiar with everyone's familiar with the yin yang symbol. Yeah, it's mega ubiquitous. It's absolutely everywhere. It's very arcane, fairly misunderstood, but it's actually very potent and very important. And what I was saying was that the dark side of that, the yin side of that, that's the chi. Okay, that's associated with the breath and what have you, all the life force which we cultivate to exist. And the yang side of that is jing, and jing is associated with seminal fluids, for example. It's also connected with bone marrow and with DNA. So a lot of the Taoist sexual practices sort of relate back to that storage and cultivation of jing, which is why they tend to hold on to their ejaculation, what have you, because it's a very like I was saying, yeah, it's a very potent and powerful energy to use as well. So these two things, qi and jing, are very important together. And then the third one is spiritual development or consciousness, the shen.
I think it's amazing how in our standard culture, being a form of Christianity here in Scotland, that kind of main culture, for a big part of that, the whole idea of, masturbation or using sexual energy to increase your health and vitality, etc., is just such a abstract, strange, off the wall kind of logic. And there's probably a few people listening here going, "Are these guys really talking about, sexual energy and again as a way to enhance your or potentially enhance your martial prowess?"
Well,
And
it's a very distinct cultural difference between the East and the West, and the fact that we've got all the hang-ups in the West of the sin, the original sin, and the evilness of having sex and all that sort of stuff. Whereas in the East, it's like, yeah, it's just a thing that happens, because they actually follow the philosophy of the balance, and that's it's a part of the natural world, it's a part of the human world, and it's certainly nothing to be ashamed of. And the cultivation of the qi and the cultivation of jing, all of these things can lead to much deeper benefits and much deeper understanding. So it's a funny old world, but I guess it's probably the thing that separates us the most.
It's quite interesting. In India, there's obviously a tantra, and one of the biggest, apart from your curry, but one of the biggest exports for India that people all know about is the Kama Sutra.
Mm-hmm.
The Kama Sutra is actually all about awaken the Kundalini and the prana energy and moving it up the spine and using that, just like we were just talking about, using that powerful energy to improve health, to reach a set of enlightenment, to open up all your meridians or your chakra system, your energetic pathways. And it's quite amazing how we have that in the West, but it's usually classed as magic with a K, and it's left in the corner of kind of people who are into the occult or the esoteric.
Esoteric, yeah. It's like I say, it's a funny old thing, but what separates it again is the fact that they don't misuse it. It's quite a sort of sacred, sort of spiritual practice itself. And our spiritual like our traditional spiritual practices in the West are often to distance yourself from such things. But well, we know what it leads to, right? It leads to bad things happening. We've all seen, we all know what's the Catholic Church and the problems which it faces, and that's fundamentally down to someone denying, a human trait of having sex. So people get caught up in the sort of collateral, and it's a shame, and it's terrible that these things happen.
So in terms of I'm just going to take back one step, just because I had written this stuff down.
Yeah, we went off on a tangent. We got involved in the Catholic Church. That's another podcast entirely.
When I was young and researching kind of the internal martial arts, which I was really interested in, the three major styles that I came across that had strong internal systems or systems that I could purchase in bookshops here was Tai Chi, Qigong, and Bagua Jin. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly.
Bagua Jin, yeah.
Yeah,
Or
the
Bagua, sorry, it'd be
Bagua.
Bagua. And Bagua Jin is an actual Qigong form. Bagua is another of the sort. It's kind of like it's a very powerful
A lot of
internal art.
circles. Yeah.
Yeah, very circular.
And
There's a few of the internal Chinese arts. Xin Yi as well, Five Animal. That's also quite a. These things we're sort of discovering them now. Like they've been around for a long, long time, and people have written about them for a long, long time, but they were never really sort of within the popular sort of consciousness.
the,
Absolutely, these things have been around for a while.
the kind of stuff that I could like buy in, Waterstones, Borders, whatever, you know.
Yep.
Because back in the day, there wasn't Amazon, and the internet was kind of young. So you were buying. There was a mail order book, sort of catalogue thing that used to come in one of the main martial arts magazines, and it always had a few unique kind of away from the classic kind of karate, kickboxing
Sure,
kind of
yeah.
books. Had a few unique books that had, and I used to buy them religiously, like books on empty force and harder qigong and bagua, and sit and read these things and think, this is fascinating, man. I would love to like see a guy do the force, like.
Support. But these things, I guess, these things that so that the difficulty that's arisen from is these things have always taken much longer. They've always taken much longer to cultivate. Just in general, and the West has always been obsessed with, results. We're very result-driven people. We expect to hit certain markers after certain. If we do that for 3 weeks, this should happen. And then we do that for the next 3 weeks, that happens. None of these systems have any of that.
We have a hamburger mentality, it's fast food, but
fast
information
food,
is fast. And
Yep.
there's two good stories I like to tell people with regards to that kind of mentality. The first one is the pianist, the guy. He listens to some beautiful piano work and he goes up after and he says to the pianist, I would give anything to be able to play piano the way you just played piano. It was beautiful, it was exquisite. And the pianist said, no, you wouldn't. And the guy thinks that she's not heard him correctly. He says, I'm sorry, I don't think you heard me. I would give anything to be able to play piano the way you just played piano. It was exquisite. It's the best piano I've ever heard. And the pianist said, you wouldn't give your time.
Yeah.
And it all comes down to like a lot of people, when it comes to the internal side, are too easy to dismiss it. But like any good skill, you don't, as I say, you don't learn it in 5 minutes.
It takes time. I think that's maybe one of its drawbacks, or the reason that is obviously beyond the obvious of the fact that it takes a long time to happen, but it also sort of suffers from its own bad publicity, in that it's built up so much that people think that it is not for them, and that it is esoteric, and it is unattainable, or unachievable. There's always that sort of, I don't know, there's like a thing just inside you that just thinks, no, that's not for me, I can't do that. And basically that's what I'm about. I'm about saying, yeah, you can, of course you can. I'll come with you if you want, because I'm not saying that I've, crested the wave or whatever. I've got a long, long way to go. But, I'm happy to sort of plod along, and I'm also happy to sort of bring people with me, and don't worry about the bad publicity. Anyone can do it,
No, I firmly believe in that. The other story that I like to tell people is the samurai and the tea master. You heard this one? The samurai.
Yes, I've heard that. It's a classic one.
He goes to kill the tea master, and the tea master says, well, let me just do the ceremony the last time. And as a part of the ceremony, because he knows he's going to die, he does his top sort of piece that he's been working his entire life, and he takes a coin and he pours the tea through the centre of the circular coin without touching the coin. And the samurai obviously thinks that's easy, stop wasting your time, and goes to try it, fails, and is blown away by the level of mastery that he has over
Yep.
his breathing, his control, his wrist, etc. The kettle being quite heavy, etc., and says, "I'll come back and kill you when I've mastered your trick." And then 40 years later, he is the tea master.
Yep.
And yeah,
I love stuff like that, like all these. I mean, is it true or is it not? Who knows? But
who
the
cares?
philosophy and exactly, who cares? The lesson, which is right through it, is much more important. So yeah, I do like that one particularly.
That I think that's one thing that in reading, because I've never been to a qigong place, but in reading or a traditional kung fu or wushu kind of place, but I've read stories of people being asked to sweep for a year before they get to actually punch or kick, and it's if they're
Yeah,
still there after the year, then you'll last the 20 years it will take to learn this stuff. But
again, it's another sort of cultural thing. I mean, they're not uh, absolutely the schools in China don't operate that way anymore. Because it'd be bad for business for a start. But the principle of it is that if you're prepared to sort of put the work in, then you've got to start at the bottom. I mean, that's where that whole sort of indoor, outdoor, that's the idea. If you heard of that, the outdoor student, the indoor student, the closed door student, that was basically what the grading system was. The grading system that we have in this country, or this part of the world, where you want to say, is fairly ridiculous. You get a white belt, then you get a blue belt, blah blah blah, whatever style you do until you're a black belt. That was never the case in the traditional martial arts. You trained you went to the master, and everybody trained outside, so you were an outdoor student. And then if the master liked what you did, or he thought that you were responsive to his teachings, he would invite you into his house, and you become an indoor student. So then you would learn more than the outdoor students, and then the final top part would be to become a closed door student, when the special teachings are passed over to you, because they're not for everyone. That stuff floats my boat. I like that sort of stuff.
that stuff floats my boat as well. That's that's the good stuff. That's the stuff that you try to find in books, but obviously the book is it's like fishing. It's just enough bait for you to see what can potentially lie behind the last page. What else is on offer.
Yep, indeed.
So I like that, because I've never heard the indoor outdoor explanation quite like that before, and
Well, it translates as, or that's what the original teachings were like. Yeah.
and I definitely think the belt structure that we have here is ridiculous, because it's like 2 plus 2 is 4, 5 plus 5 is 10,
Yeah.
but if you just take one martial art, and there's 30 different schools, somebody who's a white belt or a blue belt or a red belt, black belt, whatever, from a different school could be a totally different level, different grade completely, and it's all subjective.
Absolutely. I was going to say, as an example, I spent a lot of time, fighting, as we sort of mentioned at the start, and I've seen people, I've seen guys that are, so-called black belts, just they can't fight, and I've seen the flip side, orange belts, junior grades, whatever, absolutely demolish people, So it's not really got anything to do with the colour of the belt that they wear around their waist. It's all about the experience which they've gained, and the knowledge which they have, and how they can apply it. That makes sense.
It's something that I like. I've talked a a few times about in the podcast is, I played guitar for now going on 25 years, and I'm absolutely rubbish. But I like to tell people I play guitar, and they say, "Oh, you played for a while," and I say, "Aye, 25 years." And I literally pick it up for about an hour to 2 hours a year. You know?
So collectively, you've been playing for
a week, if I'm lucky. But
exactly. So I mean, that's what we say. Like, it's totally about the illusion, isn't it? That's basically the illusion that we're talking about. A black belt.
You know yourself.
The black belt illusion.
It is, and you know yourself. Some people go to the gym and they're in there, 2 sessions a day, 5 days a week, and other people, due to life commitments, etc., or recreational, they're just in for an hour a week.
Yep.
And you can't compete with a guy who's in there and switched on for, 10 hours, 20 hours a week.
Yep.
If you're a 1 hour a week guy, you just
I guess it's that comes down to sort of like beyond the obvious things, but it also comes down to a choice, doesn't it? Like, if you want to be that guy, if you want to be the guy that's in there 20 hours a week,
you can.
You can, Make it
happen.
We're lucky that we do have that sort of thing. But I think maybe that's kind of like the point of this whole thing with the martial arts, is that people think that they can be the 20-hour a week guy, but only train 1 hour a week.
1 hour a year.
Yeah. And I think that's just as compounded by this belt system and the grading system which we have,
Unfortunately, it might even go further than that. In fact, that people who never train in any martial art get drunk and think they're that fucking guy.
There is. I mean, there's a lot of that. It's not. To be fair, now it's not as prevalent. I mean, I don't see it as much anymore. But certainly, when Kung Fu was the craze and what have you, there was a lot of people, because it was so unknown. There was people just claiming ridiculous things. But no one could challenge them because they also didn't have the knowledge themselves to say, oh, yeah, that's not how you do it, or that's not how I got taught it, because these guys were, Kung Fu's only really been in the UK since sort of the 70s. Most of the stuff previous to that was karate, and then the other systems or the other arts rather, started to sort of filter through. But yeah, there's a whole bunch of Hu-Flung Dungs and One Hung Lows and all that. They all existed for a long time before someone actually armed with some knowledge and some experience was saying, "Oh, wait a second, this is nonsense. That's not how it's done." So, thankfully, we don't have that anymore.
Well, that one of the for me, there's obviously a classic movie called Bloodsport. Don't know if you've ever seen it.
Good Lord, I've seen Bloodsport. Yes. So you're going to talk about what's his name, Dukes, Frank Duke.
There's a picture of him and a video of him, doing a seminar, and he's an elderly guy now. He's an older guy, and his belt is seriously about 14 inches thick. It's like bigger than my monitor, and you're thinking that's just impractical on every level. What is that? And
first, I mean, he obviously had some kind of.
Oh no, for sure he was. The history stuff I've read, it seems that he was a real guy and he was legit. But he's on YouTube now, or the guy who claims to be the real Frank Dukes, and he wears this. It's like, huge belt, super thick and super wide, and see the tails on it, like the black belt from the knot. It almost touches the floor, and you're like, "What is this?" It's like pantomime.
What's going on here? Yeah, aye, they exist, man. They're out there.
But so hard Qigong. Hard Qigong. What's your thoughts on that? The kind of guys who do a lot of the throwing a chopstick through a bit of glass, snapping cable, with their pinch. Shaolin's kind of famous for it,
Yep.
in the sense of, they do a lot of headbutting a wall for a year, or gradually working up to hanging themselves.
Yeah, I mean, all that, I mean, that's proper. I mean, that's devotion, absolutely. But that it spills across into the spiritual side of it as well. What these guys do, because fundamentally, I mean, the human body's an incredible machine. Of course, it's capable of all sorts of things. It's capable of incredible levels of self-healing. It's also capable of putting itself through some serious, seriously bad ideas, like headbutting a wall for an hour and a half every day or whatever. But what drives those guys forward is their spiritual belief. I mean, sure, there's the offshoot that they might appear on stage in the in the Shaolin Wheel of Life tour, but that's only a select few. I really like that, the hard qigong stuff. Yeah, the hard body qigong. I mean, there's some dark arts in it as well. There's all sorts of, like, we seem to be talking about testicles a lot, but I'm going to bring it back to that. But yeah, there's all sorts of things, including like the dragon pearls, increasing the strength of the dragon pearls to take full on, strikes to the groin, which anybody will tell you is it's not a nice thing. It's not a nice thing to happen ever. But these guys, train their lives, and remember they're training as well. So they've got to go through it where their training's not quite up to scratch. So they have to damage themselves as they do this. So that again, like I say, it brings them back to their spiritual belief. Everybody's got their own way of expressing themselves, and these guys do it that way. And all power to them, absolutely.
It's with the hitting your head against the wall. It's almost like the whole hitting palm strikes against you. You're making your bone density thicker.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, there's anatomical reasons to do it, and again, that's training. So I'm sure they start off with a smaller weights, just and progress.
But I love that kind of mentality. It's obviously it's not in mixed martial arts or the popular combat entertainment of today. But at some point, the Shaolin and original Wushu warriors of China were just physical monsters. They were just like a modern day MMA K1 kind of guys. And at some point, somebody said, well, can we make the bones stronger? Can we make the tendons stronger? Can we make the ligaments stronger? We've built good, strong muscles, but can we make the other system strong? And how do we go about that? Well, to do that, you need to get
practice internal arts, basically, is the way to do it as well. As I think is kind of the thing that lacks in not just sort of UFC and sport combat is that pursuit of the internal training. Like I sort of equate it to being like skipping leg day. If you lift weights or whatever, if you skip leg day, you're gonna have wee skinny legs, right? So why train any combat sport without engaging in the sort of ancestral traditional teachings? It doesn't take long, 10 minutes of your day to do some breathing exercises, to get involved in some qigong. And I think that you see it across all the combat sports, that there's still something missing from it. I mean, of course, people can disagree and whatever, but it's only my humble opinion. But,
I'm with you. I think it's quite obvious from my perspective. Yeah, I do my qigong as my internal and my MMA as my external, and I definitely think it's a big part of my my martial journey.
Well, it's always it's always been my thing to be complete, as complete as you possibly can. Um, and obviously I'm not there. I'm way off it, but I'm still I'm adding these things as I go. I'm keeping up the internal training.
So you're telling me here, about 40 minutes in, that you cannot shoot thunderbolts from your ass.
I've tried. Well, I can if I've had a madras, but no, it's not something that I'm capable of doing at this stage. But these things, the internal arts break. Everything breaks down further, always further. Um, Basically, you've sort of got the three elements of internal training are martial, medical, or spiritual. Um, and you you can't just in a human lifespan. It's not possible. It's not possible to master all three of these things. So you have to sort of go with it and specialize in one of them, you know, and work on what it is that you're sort of naturally inclined towards,
Now,
and then follow the teachings of, people who are further down the line than you are.
have you ever heard of the hundred monkey theory?
The 100 monkey theory. No, I haven't heard of the 100
So, so,
monkey
so
theory.
the idea is, like, there's a collective consciousness. Like, what it takes us to learn things now is quicker than it was 1,000 years ago,
Yep,
because there's more people thinking about set things. So, for instance, the particular kind of monkey, and they're on an island, and they give them sweet potatoes, and one monkey works out that if he dips it in the salt water, it makes his sweet potato taste a wee bit better. He teaches the next monkey, teaches the next monkey. Before you know it, they get to a particular saturation where it's in the sort of monkey conscious information grid,
right,
uh,
right.
and then
Monkey
they
mind.
in the monkey mind. But then when they give the sweet potato to the same breed of monkey on a different island, they automatically have the option of taking it down and dipping it in the seawater,
Mm.
and they hadn't displayed that behaviour beforehand. And what they
Yep.
theorised was that there's some sort of connecting intelligence that when you get to a saturation, or you get so many people of this thinking about a particular subject, it gets to a sort of um, a
Like a
point
common
of
I guess.
awareness that
Yep.
that, that kind of branches out. And there was talk about this in the kind of yogi chakra kind of stuff a lot of time. For 1,000 years, it was kind of the real good information about the Kundalini and opening the prana and mastering it was kind of for the as you say, the closed door student.
Hmm.
But now there's so many books and so many folk revealing their secrets that it's a lot easier because there's a lot more awareness,
Sure.
and for you to tune into the stuff, so it sort of speeds up. Do you think that is absolute hogwash, or in terms of like kung fu, folk are now starting to be able to potentially tune in to these internal arts a bit because there's more of a, yeah, more
Sure.
people are aware of it, and
I I I I absolutely agree that there is a collective consciousness, and that as a human race we can move forward, and we can experience these things which were perhaps unknown to us before. I absolutely understand that. I know that there's a whole heap of people out there who do write a whole heap of hogwash about stuff.
oh no, for sure,
Um, of course they exist. I mean, they have to exist.
they
It's
do
just the way the
exist.
world is. It's the way the world is. But yes, I absolutely fundamentally believe. I mean, I think that as we get sort of as we progress and as we get smarter, um, even science is, Western science is stepping in and proving certain elements of that being truthful. Like talk about like sort of biocentrism, and the way in which the Hadron Collider has sort of established things which we'd previously not known, yet somehow we were still experiencing them. It's just we didn't know about them, So I absolutely think that is, something to look forward to.
Definitely, I'm a big proponent of the mind. People are always looking for the outer body experience. Have an inner body experience.
Well, exactly. I mean, this is the sort of the fundamentals of energy work. Is that we're not separate. We're not separate from anything. It was Carl Sagan said it years and years back. The iron in our blood, the calcium in our teeth. We are made of star stuff, and of course, it's a lofty and difficult concept for people to sort of wrap their heads around. But fundamentally, that's what we're talking about. We are made up of the same things. We do share much of the same, motivations just as a race, and that it's like to think that the 100 monkey mind doesn't apply to humans would be incredibly obtuse.
I think it's quite interesting because obviously, like, you talk about physics and science, like 99.98% of me is empty space, because when you go right down into the atoms and further,
subatomic level,
everything's just space. There's like a wee thing in the middle and things orbiting it, and everything is space. We're essentially just, most of us
empty, and that's what martial arts teaches us, right? All like the real sort of deep internal stuff does teach you all that. It sounds, it's sort of hard to grasp. Yes, I understand that you sound like a crazy person, but it is what we teach. You're empty. Be empty. From the emptiness, everything stems. And that's what you ask people to do. Like you ask them when you're doing qigong or tai chi or anything of those sort of ilk. You ask them not to wander off in their minds. Not to fill themselves up with their whatever they've got in their schedule in the afternoon and all that. Yeah, like just basically it's like fuck that off. Just fuck that off. Just for an hour, and just relax. Just be here. Just pay attention to your body. Be aware of like your own aches and pains. Feel where you're empty. Feel where where your body might even want to move. And that's what we ask of people. And I can see why that some folk are just like, what the fuck, and it's just like they're just like, nah, I'm not doing this. It's too weird, Whereas other people wholeheartedly embrace it and just go with it, And ultimately, they're the ones that receive the biggest benefit from it, But just by going with it.
For a lot of people, the first time they even try to not just quiet their mind or get it to an absolute still, but just to monitor their mind like that. That's the one of the things about, obviously, with science. You have a theory, you have an experiment, they equate, you've got scientific fact until somebody comes up with a better theory, a better experiment, and they prove it, and everything's kind of temporary. But in the mind, it's like inside your mind, who knows what's happening inside somebody else's mind?
Exactly.
How does their inner world, how is it built? How, again, is it possible for them to shut their mind up? Is it easier for them? Is it harder for them?
I think that's why the internal arts, that's why they're so difficult, because the first hurdle that you have to cross is probably the biggest one, in that you have to sort of escape all of that and actually be yourself. And I think our sort of predilection, just as humans, which is fine, obviously, of course, because we've all got lives and we're all busy people. But that is our sort of we're hardwired to have busy minds and to think that somehow if I spend this time just relaxing and breathing, then it's time not well spent. Does that make sense? Because of course that's not the case.
It's a big part of it. It's the kind of, you've got to be active, you've got to be doing something, and the only time that you get to switch off is when they're beaming the propaganda into you in the black box.
Absolutely, which is why people shouldn't go anywhere near that sort of.
Buy, consume.
Yeah,
consume,
so it's like it's all distraction, isn't it? Distraction. I think we like to be distracted by things, but it's much more beneficial for us to just be just at that one time, just listen to what's going on just within yourself. You don't actually necessarily need a teacher to show you that, But I also understand that it's the most difficult thing, because it's as an instructor, it's difficult to tell people like, relax, no, relax harder. It's like it's oxymoronic to say that to someone. Relax harder, but it's effectively what you're asking them to do. So yeah, the internal studies is very much it's an individual thing. People can guide you, but it's always down to yourself, to make it happen or to make it work.
It's definitely something that I'm very interested in. I've had a guy on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, and you can check that out on everythingsillusion.com. Go back. It was the Masato Toys one, and we were talking about different paths or different routes to the internal world, using drugs, pain, meditation, all these kind of different things that different cultures use to go inwards.
To transcend or whatever, to transcend it all. Yeah, I guess it's anything which takes a distraction away. Some things are more damaging than others. I mean, there's plenty of things like, ayahuasca, for example, which is not damaging at all, from what I can understand. Not that I have any experience with it, just other than
the teacher,
the reading of it. But obviously, it's a herbal, so it's natural,
so
plant based.
Ayahuasca is really interesting because it's got three components. One of the components is the kind of DMT, and it's naturally occurring in your brain. It gives you the dreams. The other one is like a caffeine-like substance, a stimulant, which prolongs the experience. And the third one is something that neutralizes an enzyme in your stomach that would neutralize the first two.
Right.
So it's like it's a way of keeping the first two active when it's digested.
So that would imply that how ayahuasca is being used is exactly how it was supposed to be used.
But the beautiful thing about ayahuasca, when the shamans are asked, how did you come up with this? There's 80,000 medicinal plants in the Amazon, and you pick these three in a specific order that do a specific task, and they work.
Yeah.
And the shaman always says ayahuasca showed us. It's like a chicken and the egg again.
Exactly. But again, that gets you right back to the root of the internal training. Like, where does it stem from? Where does even an idea which you think is your own, where does that come from in the first place? Like something just pops into existence, or has it? How did it find its way there? How did the shamans know to put those things together? And it's like the meridian system in traditional Chinese martial arts. How on earth? How did they know? How did they know that's like? Who came up with it in the first place, and how did they come up with it in the first place? All those questions are.
That question for me. That's one of the best questions, because recently I read an article about the Indian chakra system and how, when you go back and you look at history and you start, this guy was a Sanskrit scholar, and he basically said that this whole seven chakra system that the West and the fake yogis are enshrined upon is bullshit. It was basically, it's the youngest one. The chakra system in the Sanskrit, there's many different systems. There's no uniform system. There can be between 3 and 33. There can be, and he's describing all these different things, and I was like, this is amazing, really interesting that getting somebody with a bit of the native lingo, Indian guy with a Sanskrit, come back and talking through it. And when you talk about meridians, obviously in India there's a system of energy pathways, in Korea, in Japan, in different parts of China, and they're all slightly different. You know, the way the Japanese key energy and the way that they look at the meridian paths for, say, a massage like shiatsu, slightly different from the Chinese system, or one of the Chinese systems.
Yep.
I've been high a few times, quite a few times, and on a number of occasions, my energy's like I'm a moon man when I'm high. I've not been high for years, but I used to get high all the time when I was younger, and I was like a moon man. I stopped smoking dope when I was about 22, but I was the guy who sat in a corner and was just in my own world. I was like zoom, and I could feel the energy ripping through my body, getting up and down my arms, and that's one of the things I was so fascinated with all this kind of stuff, because when I smoked some herb, I knew it was real. You know, I like, it was zooming. I was like, whoa, getting like fire ripping down veins and rivers. And
what I'm saying is that these, like, I mean, I get there's still a natural compound, that's fine, but these things can also be felt and experienced through internal practice as well, without any sort of added exterior stimulant. You know, you can have those same feelings of, you know, like your body's getting ripped apart, that you're, you know, the shakes, and like you feel like some sort of, like something's caged inside almost, and it's just working and working and working its way out. You don't necessarily need an external.
Oh, I totally agree. I totally agree. Like, it was just in my youth that was my experience, and I remember going to a Reiki healer in Dundee, of all places, and he done a Reiki session. I'd had at this point numerous Reiki sessions, and I felt some energy from the healer, but there was nothing. It was there. There was something happening.
Mm-hmm.
This guy, it was like a fire hydrant, and he just boom, and it was like holy fuck, this is like, that guy's got a microwave hand or something, you know. It was like I opened my eyes to look to see if he had
to see if he was pulling a trick on you of some sort,
hot coals or something, you know. And I was like, this unbelievable. I was saying to the guy, like, I'm into this stuff, you know. I read books on this, I do a wee bit of this and that, and that was just different class. And he was just, we had a big conversation, and he had a crystal shop in Dundee, and talking about chi and energy and all this sort of stuff, and he looked at it totally different. For him, it was all internal, it was all breathing, sort of symbols, and it was the Japanese kind of system, so it was looking at the kind of shiatsu lines and stuff.
From what I understand about Reiki practitioners and what have you, is that it's not actually them that sort of inflicts the healing. They act as a sort of
a straw,
a conduit of some sort, you know, to allow that sort of celestial energy to just flow through, and it's technically you know, that tells them, like, you as the patient, you tell them where to go, where they need to be, and they just respond to it. So basically, that's just high level internal understanding, is that it's not it's a responsive system, you know. It's a reactive system as opposed to a sort of proactive system, you know. It's completely non-aggressive.
But
It's always about allowing things to just flow how they need to flow.
I agree with everything you've said there, but one of my problems with Reiki has always been that, you know, you can buy a Reiki course on the internet
Yeah,
for $50, and
that's our.
and they give you some symbols, you know, and in your mind you draw the symbol,
Mhm.
and then the energy floods you, and then you flood your patient
Yep,
and take their money. And to
totally.
me,
It's
um,
very irresponsible,
I, I
first and foremost.
I've been to like channeling classes, you know, like how to channel
Hmm.
and all this kind of stuff. And all in Reiki classes, I've done my Reiki as well. And I tend to just argue with people because people just come out with buzzwords of new age kind of buzzwords and string them together like they've read The Secret or something, and then they just talk
Suddenly
this
they're an
kind of,
expert or whatever.
yeah, new age hogwash, and you're like, you're
That's what I'm
just
saying. That's what I was saying sort of a while back was like it suffers from its own bad publicity, and unfortunately, its bad publicity is generated by the people who do it, you know, or by many of the people that do. Of course, there's plenty of legit people out there, but and that's like, you know, I don't really know how anyone can combat that, you know, because all it takes. I mean, uh, these are difficult concepts for anyone to put their head around, and all it takes is for one person to just say something stranger, you know, and then it's everybody's gone. You've lost everybody, you know.
or you've gained everybody because you now have the new secret shit that's new on the block.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like none of this stuff's new on the block. That's the thing. That's the point. All this stuff is, you know, 5,000 years old plus. There isn't really any new stuff, you know. It might be new to you, but it's not. It's not new to, you know, the general sense of the universe. You know what I mean?
I totally know and understand what you're saying, but just in a marketing kind of sense, of a capitalist making money kind of sense, it can always be repackaged
Yes, but
for a new audience, and it continuously is.
and
We
that's what I'm saying. That's like that sort of disingenuous, you know, all that sort of stuff. That, you know, I hate marketing. I absolutely detest it. You know. Um,
Facebook.com breakthrough
yeah.
combat.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for that plug. No, I hate it. It's you know, like people would say that standing in some church hall somewhere, breathing and just, you know, just being is a waste of time. When I would say, you know, doing something like that, marketing something like that, that's a bigger waste of time. You know, that it doesn't elevate us, it doesn't change anything. You know, um, but yes, it's a necessary evil. You know, to survive. But I guarantee that the masters of the past didn't have a, you know, they wouldn't have had a PR team or a dedicated development team or whatever, you know. Their authentic teachings spoke for themselves, you know, and people would seek them out. I know the world's a different place now, and that's not
I
it's
think
not how we function. But you know, it's in many ways that's the sort of stuff that just makes you very frustrated, you know, and angered that it goes on.
I think some of that still does happen, you know, because we do still you know, seek out the good stuff, you know, and bypass a lot of the kind of superficial marketed gash. You know, you can quickly see through their marketing stuff that, now maybe that isn't for me.
Yeah.
Um, just due to the fact that my cats are coming back.
Get an inhaler down you again.
I'm going to go from. I know that was hard Qigong.
Was it? Jeez, that
Well,
was a while.
that was about 4 minutes ago. Um, have you heard of a thing called Systema or
Yes,
System A?
absolutely. No, Sistema, the Russian martial art. I absolutely love it. I have zero understanding of it other than what I can apply the Tai Chi concepts, which I understand. I can apply them to it,
There's
but
a
only by looking at it. I don't know anything about it. I love it. I think it's absolutely fantastic.
It was created by the Russian military to basically. It took a lot of the kind of, if you like, native Russian and Eurasian and right across to the whole landmass of Asia, landmass of Russia, and obviously a lot of years with like Mongol invaders and all this kind of stuff. So there's a huge kind of tradition of martial sciences throughout that whole kind of area. They combined them, got rid of all the crap, created System A. But the
Sistema
thing,
is Sistema. It is
uh,
pronounced Sistema.
but one of the I bought a DVD a few years ago, on the Empty Force kind of thing, because they have a system which the DVD title is called Beyond the Physical with Mikhail Rabaiko. I don't know if that's
Yeah, he's a big heavy guy. He's sort of like the forefather of it in many ways, bit of a grandfather of it or whatever.
and he does this kind of no touch, and he doesn't talk about energy at all. He talks about it's like psychological.
Yeah, they speak of it, but I mean that's like, to me, this is this is perhaps where I differ, but to me that is energy work, psychology
I
or something.
agree, and he agrees as well.
Oh, he says he does say that. So.
It's just they use the word like psychological, but he's using a lot of Systema has amazing breathing techniques. In fact, that's one of the
Maybe you should do something for your reason cat.
That's I'm taking myself to the edge, and then I got to bring myself back. I'm going to show that these techniques work.
live on the podcast.
But he does some amazing things, and there's one in the video where, obviously, if you check him out on YouTube and stuff, there's loads of like people punching him in the belly, punching him in the chest, etc. And then he just does this kind of like big breath, kind of hammer punch thing. It doesn't look as if it hurts, and he just like levels people, and you can see that it's real because the reaction is real. It's no like an Aikido demonstration where somebody's flying through the sky and stuff. It's literally they punch him as hard as they can, and he just taps them and they fall down.
Energy transfer, yeah. I mean, it's energy transfer. There's all sorts of things going on. There's structural lineup, anatomical lineup, there's intention, all those things. Like I say, I don't understand Systema, but I understand Tai Chi, and I see very, very little difference between the two of them. I think maybe the Systema sort of it's just a bit more Soviet, it's just a bit more sort of straightforward, a bit more sort of visceral, if you want, whereas Tai Chi is just a bit more delicate, a bit more subtle, but all those elements are contained in all that stuff, and like those sort of dead weight punches and all that sort of stuff, they can be taught to anyone, like perhaps not with the same sort of level as, I mean, his name's unpronounceable. Is it Rabakov or something like that?
We'll just call him Mikhail.
Mikhail, Big Mickey. I'm sure that, again, he's cultivated himself over time, right? So, his punches are going to be just even more refined. But it can be taught to anyone. It can be done. I've been at the end of a few of them from individuals in the UK.
Well, there's nothing worse than you think you look at somebody and you think, and then they punch you and it
And then
doesn't even
twist
look
it up.
like a
Exactly.
and it doubles you and you're like, what just happened?
Exactly. But I mean, this is kind of sort of going back to like the MMA stuff and that the part of that the bit that is missing, you know. Because those guys, that is just a physical, you know, it's just a physical motion. It's a physical expression, is all that is. You know, they're punching. Yeah, sure, they're great punchers, but they're only punching with the sort of anatomy, with the shoulder, with the, you know, if they're a bit better, they'll put the hip in it. You know, if they're a bit better still, they'll put the ankle as well. You know, but they're ultimately only just hitting with a sort of, you know, shallow, sort of superficial.
Back in the game, I'll stitch these all together.
Apologies. I had to put this up there. What was I saying before we cut off?
Um,
Does it not matter?
it was we were talking about in mixed martial arts they don't have that kind of component of
It's not just, you know, I'm not just, you know, specifically talking about MMA or whatever, but just in many of the combat sports, you see it. You know, I see it as a practitioner. I can see it that it's missing. You know, you've got Big Mickey just leveling people with next to no effort, and yes, there's plenty of big punchers out there in the sport combat world that can do it with looking like next to no effort as well. But it's still a physical punch. It's still, you know, I was saying if they're, you know, like they're punching from the shoulder, sure. If they're a bit better, they'll punch from the hip. You know, if they're a bit better still, they'll punch down with the from the floor, the ankle. You know, like the kinetic linking, if they're particularly good. But it's big, gross movements. You know, so although you might not be able to stop it, you still see it coming. And then Big Mickey there does it with what looks like next to no effort. You know, incredible.
there's one in the DVD where he's demonstrating a kind of no touch kind of stuff where kind of people are coming at him and he's kind of moving to the side. He's doing which looks like strange ritual dancing, and people are either just stopping or they're kind of falling down kind of stuff. But there's a bit near the end where you can see somebody who's paid their $50 or whatever it is to be a part of the event, you know, and they're getting a bit frustrated. They've seen these guys, you know, fall, but they've thought, I'm going to hit this cat. I'm going to hit him, and his fancy bad breath technique ain't going to work on me. And it's the only time I've legitimately seen an empty force demonstration where the guy goes for it, and there's like a face of like he's just watched The Exorcist for the first time in his life. His face just goes like a contorted kind of.
Yep, he looks like he shat himself.
Aye, and literally, and Mickey O's face for the first time, and the whole presentation kind of distorts just ever so slightly, as if, sorry lad, but I had to just put you in your place. And
totally. I mean, it's almost like, I mean, that's a lot of the guys thrive on that sort of idea of it, like, you know, being disrespectful. So they never expect someone to. You're right there. You're right. I can hear you in the back. Yeah, they expect people to just like sort of fall in line and just do what they're told. You know, so of course he's upset and a little bit, feels a bit disrespected. You know, but again, it's not, you know, it's not his fault. He puts himself out there on a public forum to demonstrate his techniques. Some guy comes at him, you know, fair play, you know.
I suppose that's the thing. There is a lot of, you know, no touch kind of guys that today have been called out and have been beaten on camera.
Theory, as we were talking about before, like in theory, I can see that it's possible. Because of that, the idea of the connection, the interconnectedness, you know. I've never seen it.
I think We had previously talked about Earl
Earl Montague.
Montague, the
Yeah.
DIMMAC instructor.
There's another guy, might have mentioned it to you, there's another guy called Ian Waite. I think I spoke to you before. He's the Dragon Society, or the Dragon Society International. If anybody's not heard of them, they should totally have a wee look at what they do. They've got a very scientific approach to. A lot of them are karate boys, and what they do is they apply the opposite of the healing arts, acupuncture, so on and so forth. They apply they go backwards. They work backwards from that, and they've put it into the, they've discovered how the katas and what have you, the forms, how they sort of work energetically. And this boy Ian Waite is probably he was a student of. I've only actually trained with him once. He was in Scotland many years ago. But he trained with Bruce Lee, and then this was during the time Bruce was in Seattle, and then Bruce moved away, and many of the teachings never left Seattle, apparently. Bruce moved on and developed, but some of the stuff which he'd been teaching stayed there, and Ian Waite's a sort of exponent of that sort of background. I've seen him do some pretty cool stuff with the energy work. Can I give you some reading? Can I give you some reading? If anybody is out there and is particularly interested in this sort of stuff, there's a book. It's quite hard to find, but there's a book called The Western Bubishi. It's by a man called Rand Cardwell, and it's an old book. I've got it here in front of me just now. It's an old book from, I don't know, sort of maybe the 80s or before. It's quite hard to get. The Western Bubishi, an advanced study of martial science by Rand Cardwell.
How do you spell Bubishi?
Bubishi, Bubishi, Bubishi. And he's sort of, well, we were talking about Earl Montague there. There's a foreword at the start of the book by, obviously it's a foreword, it's not going to be at the end of the book, by Earl Montague. So, it's him giving a bit of a chat about how good this guy is. I don't know what his background is, but it's a particularly brilliant book. And if anybody's interested in the sort of DIMMAC stuff, Dian Shui stuff, they should check it out. And also have a look at the Dragon Society International. All very good, mind expanding stuff.
Well, that's I think it's really interesting, this kind of side of the martial arts, because a lot of people just look at, as I said, the physical side. And you said there about Bruce Lee. I've been to 3 of Eric Paulson's seminars.
He's fantastic.
And Eric Paulson being somebody who's got legit Bruce Lee way of the intercepting fist lineage, authentic judo lineage, authentic Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu lineage, authentic. Everything he'd done was authentic, the right people to learn from, and he's obviously the coach or instructor to some of the past big names in mixed martial arts like Brock Lesnar, etc.
Yep.
But a big part of his seminar at the end, it's always at the end, and it's just like an introduction for people. But it's about the breathing, and he subscribes to a guy called Dravalo Melchizedek, which is it's called the Merkaba. It's like a kind of esoteric breathing system. Mm-hmm. You breathe in a light body and all energy and the kind of chakra kind of stuff. But nonetheless, it's a full system based on breathing, the inner journey, energy, and here's one of the kind of the greatest physical combat components of our generation, who's teaching the next level of high level MMA champions, and he's right into the energy stuff,
Totally. I mean, I just can't tell you how much I respect that sort of thing, there's such a place for it, and it's like you said, it's so easy to do, so easy to do it. You just throw it in at the end, maybe 10 minutes of that. That that I mean, obviously, like you can't even doubt Eric Paulson's like qualifications. You know what I mean? Like he's very prolific, um, but it just screams of much more. Like to me, as a sort of person who's journeyed towards sort of internal understanding, just screams of authenticity. The fact that he sticks it in there and does it, the fact that he thinks it's important, to to for anyone who wants to sort of partake in the sort of sport combat side of it, he still thinks that there's a need for it and there's still a place for it. I mean, ultimately, it's like if we're talking about MMA, it's still mixed martial arts, and martial arts still have to maintain that sort of traditional idea of heritage, and those, if you want to say esoteric teachings, but it still needs to have that part of it for it to qualify as a martial art.
I'm still waiting for the MMA and the UFC, maybe UFC 290 or UFC 300, where people are really committed to both sides. Where there's people doing like proper Shaolin techniques to like thicken their hands and thicken their skills, and there's
Yeah.
other guys that are doing full on breathing and energetic work to almost like energy vampires, just stealing
But it's
people's energy.
it's one of those questions that always comes up, right? Why, if these guys are masters and all that, if these guys are masters, why are they not competing in the UFC? And that's like, to me, I think that's just a total, it's an offensive question because that sort of has you buying into the idea that the UFC is the top of it, and that
You mean it's
these
not?
guys these guys have to they have to prove themselves, by fighting in the UFC. It's like the UFC for me is like it would be a sideways move, as for someone to do that to appear in the UFC. It's not going to happen. It's never going to happen. People need to get over it. The internal arts take much longer to cultivate. You peak as a fighter around about 35 to 38, as a person falling, whatever it is, DMAC, um, energetics, that sort of stuff. It takes much, much longer for you to peak. And it's like, to me, it's like a bad question, It's like, why? What would be a better question would be like, if that guy, because remember, they're the guys running around calling themselves Ultimate Fighters, you know. Why don't they go and do push hands with Chen Xiaowan, for example? It's like it always seems to be asked from that one direction that we need to move up towards that sort of level of competition. These guys are not interested in that. They, it's frustrating, but I'm sure you've seen that question arise a million times. If he's so good, why is he not in the UFC?
Well, that's it as well, and the other side of that is the UFC or any kind of major brand of mixed martial arts has a rule system, and that rule system is not geared up for like the proper application of martial arts. Martial arts doesn't have a rule. If somebody attacks you, you lay them out.
Well,
And
there's a really good video. I don't know what it was. I seen it on. I think it might have actually been on Facebook. I saw it, but it's one of the. I'm pretty sure it's a Filipino martial arts. So the guy's got a blade. It's one of the bladed martial arts. Um.
it's
Against
Screamer.
it's something like that. Whatever it is, it's one of them. But they've got blades. So this guy's got a blade, and this other guy's unarmed, and they're going to fight each other. And you're like, this can really only go one way. I mean, I think it's called like How to End Any Fight in Seconds or whatever. And obviously, there's loads of those videos. So good luck trying to find it. But basically, the boy goes for him with the blade, and the other guy, I don't know what he does. I don't know what his style is. But he basically sticks his thumb right in the guy's eye.
It just
And
stops
I
him.
mean, it stops him absolutely dead. and then it takes him, a good old like 40 minutes to recover. You see him standing in the back, and all his mates are like patting him on the back and stuff. It's like, I mean, that's not.
This
I'm not.
shit's real.
I'm not
I'm not
saying
here
that
to
like.
fuck about.
I'm not saying like, oh, he's because he's an internal master. Right? It's like, no, he just doesn't give a fuck. So he pokes the boy in the fucking eye. You know what I mean? Like that's some serious stuff. And that's, I think, what I'm saying is we should never, like, we shouldn't get carried away with anything. We shouldn't get carried away with the external side, and we shouldn't get carried away with the internal side. There's a place for both, and sort of fundamentally that place is the same place. They can exist side by side, and you need to be training both sides, or you can stick your thumb in some guy's fucking eye, and you'll also succeed. You know,
I always say to people, your best option is to run.
if you can.
Obviously, if you can, but your best option or your first option is to run. Like a lot of the things which we learn in martial arts are hard to apply in real life. I think that's why, like, sparring is a valuable part. Like, obviously, we've talked a lot about the internal, but the external, as you're well seasoned in.
Yeah,
Sparring is a good practice to get that, to build the reactions to the punches, to the kicks, to the blocks.
Absolutely. I think that there needs to be a place, because it's, like I say, there's also a place for the external as well. Like these, if you go teach self-defense to someone, self-defense is an incredibly difficult and vastly encompassing subject, and very, very difficult to teach. Very difficult to teach authentically, because effectively what you do is you affect a scenario. You have to do that because you can't teach them otherwise. So you affect a scenario which may or may not happen, which is why it's so difficult. I think the best way that you could teach self-defense to someone is, first and foremost, teach them the legislation, so they understand what they can and can't do in a given situation, and what they may be faced with, if things are perceived differently. But the point I was going to make, sorry, is the fact that, like, hardly anybody's actually thrown a punch and hit someone.
Definitely, it's a big.
Sorry, you're still there. You're still there. I thought you'd run away. No one's actually like thrown a punch and hit someone. They don't even that. Like that idea, those basic mechanics which you take for granted as a guy who's done martial arts for X, Y, Z, whatever amount of years. If you're going to try and, so you do this, move like this, block like that, and then punch them in the face. They may not even know what it feels like to punch someone in the face, which is why it's absolutely vital to spar and to have that element of competition, to have that sort of what they call pressure testing. It's really important to have that within your system as well.
I seen a video one time, a friend had posted up on Facebook, and it was 5 easy ways to defend against knife attacks.
I mean, come on, it's like no.
And it was all this kind of like slow blocking and again cupping the wrist, taking the blade. So I posted up a video, again, best knife defense, and the guy shows you that, like, most people who attack with a knife are not interested in actually showing you that they're attacking you with a knife.
Yeah, if you see the knife, then you stand a chance.
It's too late, It's like dun. He's like, you're dead. It's like, yeah. You're dead. He says the best defense is always just to be polite and run.
So give them what they want.
That's
sometimes you don't even get that option though, right?
Oh no, for sure, yeah.
I think, again, like I say, self-defense is a very, very difficult thing to teach. I mean, I've been asked to do it a few times, and you do your best, but it's never really sat right with me, as an instructor, because I feel like, this is like there is some level of you where just like, this is shite, this is bullshit, because like I say, you're affecting a scenario which may or may not happen. You might get your point over about something, but I think it's a very, very difficult path to tread, you know.
But it's definitely something that again is a front door into martial arts.
Sure, I mean, yeah,
Self
absolutely. A lot of
defense
people,
is a
everybody sticks it in their poster, really, don't they? Everybody's, you know, self-defense. So it's
every gy-
normally like near the top of the list.
every gym offers it. That's what you should offer a breakthrough. You should offer.
Self-defense. Well, I mean, of course, like I say, I'd show it to people, I'd teach it to people, but I'd teach it from the sort of legislative point of view. Those things are more important to understand. You know, like, uh, you know, what's the minimum term you're going to face? You know, if you happen to do the guy over, you know, like how's it going to be perceived? What do you say? You know, it's often um, down to what you say as opposed to what you actually do. You know, especially if it was just sort of closed, a closed scenario that not many people see. As long as you can say, oh, you had this honest belief that there was an imminent attack, so you used reasonable force. That's kind of the three things that you need to express to people: honest belief, imminent attack, reasonable force. And then beyond that, it's up to the judge to decide what reasonable force is. You know, but like I say, there's still some sort of level of it that you're just like, this is ridiculous. It's a ridiculous thing to try and show to someone. You know, if you want to learn self-defense, then go and train Muay Thai. Yeah, go and train boxing. Go and train any type. Go and train MMA. Anything, doesn't matter. Go and train some sort of sport combat where you regularly face an opponent. That's the only safe way you can have some skill when it comes to self-defense, in my opinion.
I think that's a. Pardon me. I think it's a good. Oh, aye. I'm just struggling to breathe here. It's a good. It's a good advert for Qigong. Yeah. We're doing it for 15 years. Struggling to breathe and sound like I have a cat up my nose.
It happens.
I recently had a sinus operation to open up my sinuses, so there's a lot happening in that
in that general area.
Aye, so it's not just quite as simple as. I'm going to call it a day there, my good man.
Well, I hope that I was of some interest to yourself.
I hope you enjoyed it. I'm sure the listeners here in podcast land and they can interact with yourself at facebook.com/breakthrough combat. I've also got a few links. All these links are on the Facebook page, the Twitter, and on the website.
Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing here you've got a GoFundMe campaign. What's that?
Yeah. This is it's kind of late in the day, but it's an important thing which is happening. Part of the Taoist studies, which I'm a part of, which I'm very honoured to be a part of. We have a master in China, Master Li in China, and what you can see there's some pictures on it. This is an ancestral temple, which is on a mountain called Tianmen-shan, which is one of the holy mountains in China. And very briefly, that temple was destroyed during the Cultural Revolution, and it is my master's wish to see the temple rebuilt. So he's a bit special, Master Li. He's a special man. He's a special man to me. The people over there, the labourers, have offered to work for free because Master Li holds a certain position. But what they don't have is access to the materials. So we're looking to raise £10,000. And although the GoFundMe page would have you believe it differently, we're somewhere in the region of about 7 or 8. We've actually done quite well. But we'd like to sort of top it off. We need 10,000 to help restore the temple to its natural and whatever, its authentic traditional glory. So it's quite an important thing. And there's a group of instructors who've been working across the UK to make that happen. So if anybody wants to put some cash in it, it'd be much appreciated, of course. And also the thing to remember is to put your name on it, because the workers have very kindly said that everybody who donates to the temple will have their name carved into the stone. So it's important that you put your name on it so that they can do that, and then you can be part of what will be Taoist history, I suppose. So it's a very, very noble and powerful cause. So if anybody wants to do that, that'd be awesome.
Sounds pretty
And there's
good.
a little there's a wee link there, so you can donate just across that GoFundMe page.
So
That'd be awesome.
That link will be on the website and on the Facebook and on the poster. As you can probably see if you clicked on the poster to get to the podcast, or you're on the website to get to or in the notes in iTunes. We never really talked about it, but I'll maybe get you on again to talk about this stuff, because I know
If you'll have me,
you have the skills and the knowledge, film making, and I know that's your job, projectionist.
Yeah, I'm not filmmaking. I don't go anywhere near that. I wouldn't touch that with a barge pole. But no, I'm a film technician, so I work on the other side of it.
And obviously through that and through films and stuff, you've got a passion for martial arts films. And we were talking, and you were telling me about a project you're trying to bring to Edinburgh.
Yes, we've already established it as being a good idea, which is great. The Edinburgh Film House, where I work, has decided that my idea of putting on a martial arts film festival, a mini film festival, or a season, it would take place over one weekend, and it's most likely to be happening in September of this year. I hope to bring people from sort of the UK martial arts scene, and I also want to bring people from the actual film side as well. So stage combat guys, some stunt men, I've got a few surprises up my sleeve as well. So it's called Fights Camera Action, and it'll be a little bit of a sort of, you'll get to see some of the golden age of Hong Kong cinema, right up to how the state of the industry is just now, how it was saved by certain individuals. The martial arts genre is a total, it's massive genre. I'm sure there's lots of folk out there in podcast land that are big old martial arts film fans as well. But basically, again, I could just come on here and ask for money. We need to raise some funds because the prints are so rare that we need the rights to them. So we're looking for about £3,500 to bring some prints across. So I'm not actually asking for money in that case. What would be more beneficial is if anybody out there knows anyone who would be potentially interested in sponsoring the film season, a little bit of a corporate sponsorship. There's some deals and there's sort of incentives from the film house side to make that happen. So if anybody's out there and has any ideas about who may be interested in it, then again send us a line, either to the Breakthrough page or to Rob Wallace's media. Any of that would be helpful too. So thank you very much.
See, that's something that if it's in September, I'll definitely come in for the weekend, because that was my whole like most people, it's their introduction to martial arts is the martial
Absolutely.
arts movies, the Shaw Brothers.
Yep. Golden Harvest, all of that. Yeah, even just seeing that logo, dong, 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 everyone's like, oh yeah, it's going to be good, So I hope to sort of capture that spirit,
Oh,
because
that's
it's not something that's never gone away. The appeal of the martial arts movies never ever gone away. So I'd like to spoke.
And there's people like me that have never had the opportunity to actually see like a martial arts flick at the cinema.
Big screen.
You watch them on. I've watched them on my 14-inch screen with my VHS. I've watched them on my computer, on my telly, but I've never had the opportunity to go to the cinema and see.
Remember, these films, that's what they were put out there for, you know. They were released for that very reason, to be seen on the big screen, so, you know.
That'd be amazing. That's
well, like I said, I got some surprises. I can't let it slip yet because obviously it's not confirmed, but there's some pretty cool stuff which potentially would happen, so, you know, pretty excited about that.
You send me the link for for any information you have on that, and through the time I'll update that, and we could get you on again to if you wish to talk about kung fu movies.
Sure, anytime.
Because I know there's a few folk out there in podcast land that big fans of the kung fu, and you know, I've got some fantastic. I love kung fu movies. So you can't beat it, man.
Everybody should. Everybody should. You know, that's one of the main reasons that a lot of people are involved in it in the first place. You know, like we said, because they've seen it up there and they wanted a piece of it. You know, so
I remember talking to a guy just briefly, and we were talking about hip hop, and he was talking about it. The Wu-Tang Clan. He loves the Wu-Tang Clan. Wu-Tang Clan. Wu-Tang Clan. I was like. And he just kept on talking about the Wu-Tang Clan and their music. I was saying, have you seen The Mystery of Chess Boxing? And he looked at me as if I was like from Mars. I was like, what's that? I was like, just stop talking about the Wu-Tang Clan. Like, just stop. Like fuck off. Because it's amazing, like how
people don't make the connection, perhaps.
Yep.
Yeah.
And how the music is so intertwined with kung fu, and there's a big part of that kind of rap scene that is just like doused in really amazing or bad like kung fu films, you know. I think Mystery of Chess Boxing ran
remember the game that they brought?
18 weeks in the cinema. Brooklyn.
Remember the Wu-Tang game that was out? I can't remember what console it was on. I think it was the SNES. Man, it was brilliant.
Super Nintendo now we're talking. Showing your age here.
I think it was called the 36 Chambers even. It might have been. It was great. It was like sort of Streets of Rage thing, but it was all the Wu-Tang Clan. Absolutely magic.
It was Kung Fu on the Spectrum.
The Spectrum, yeah.
And you needed 7 hands to actually operate all the buttons. You know, it's like your brother and your sister were on the keyboard as well, trying to.
And they did the legs, you did the arms.
Somebody was doing the jump.
Good times, though.
Well, thank you very much for coming on the podcast, and for all the folk out there, definitely check out Ali's stuff. I say facebook.com Breakthrough Combat, and hope you've enjoyed it. And
always welcome, so
definitely keep in touch, and we'll get you back on because this conversation has just begun.
I feel like it has. But yeah, thanks for having me on now.
No bother. Thanks, Ali. Cheers. Everything is an Illusion is brought to you by RobWallaceMedia.com, award-winning media. TheEnergeticMind.com, inspirational, motivational and thought-provoking art. And Health Made Simple. Buy today, change your life forever. healthmadesimple.info. Thank you, and remember, question everything.